Go.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our weekly Mount Shasta ZOHAR study group. We're very happy to have you here with us tonight, especially on this very festive week, which is the celebration of Hanukkah,
Yay.
which we're going to actually approach from a whole different perspective, not from the Jewish holiday perspective, but from a Kabbalistic perspective. So before we start, I would like to take the opportunity and light the candles, and then we can talk about the beauty of Hanukkah. All right. So I'm going to say the prayer, and we'll just do it quickly so we have time for the class, then we can explain everything else. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher קידשנו מצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר חנוכה.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
Amen.
So we'll skip the songs for tonight because
Maybe
we
later.
have a lot of material to go through, but we can enjoy the beauty of these candles. And first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you for Atara and Mellow Place because this is the gift and our gratitude to Mellow Place. Actually, tonight it's our last class, our last Zohar transmission from this location, and it's going to be reconnected as the Vortex Fair Chocolate Boutique next year, 2017.
And vegan cafe.
And a vegan cafe.
And Zohar Center.
And Zohar Center, yes. So So I want to say thank you for Atara for providing this beautiful and magical place. We're very grateful, and all the light that has been revealed through all these past months since we've been doing that. So thank you so much, Atara. Very grateful. And now we hope that your next adventure is going to be more amazing and incredible, whatever it is. So we love you and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So let's start with our weekly study. Tonight we're going to study the portion of Miketz. And Miketz, it means in Hebrew at the end. At the end of what? So that's what we're going to study tonight. We're going to discuss end, which is actually at the beginning. And it's a very, very important end that the Zohar is talking about. So before we go into the study, a couple of things that are happening on this week. It's not a coincidence that the cosmic event, and I don't want to call it Jewish holiday because a Jewish holiday is the result or is the effect, but the cause of what we call the holiday of light, those 8 days that we light those candles, it's actually a cosmic event that always happens on the 24th day of the month of Sagittarius, and then it goes into the new moon of Capricorn, and then the last few days that actually go into the month of Capricorn. So it's not a coincidence that Hanukkah happens on that particular time when we talk about the portion of Miketz, which Miketz we're going to be talking about. It's talking about the end of the darkness. That's what it's teaching us.
Amen.
So it's not a coincidence. Actually, we're lighting candles because the physical lighting of the candles that we're doing, it's a physical expression of a different light we're going to be discussing here today, which is the light force of the Creator. So the physical light is the embodiment of that. So we're going to discuss what is the relationship between that biblical code stories of Joseph in Egypt and how that pertains to Hanukkah. So a couple of things that I want to say about Hanukkah. First of all, the meaning of the word Hanukkah means in Hebrew, from the word tunachnoch, means to inaugurate. Hanukkah means inauguration. And we know in Kabbalah that the word inauguration, it's a word that has to do with for those of you who have experience in coding and programming, we're actually doing some sort of a programming to what? We're programming physical reality. The whole point of us being in this realm called Malchut, the physical reality, so we can be the rulers of this reality. And that's why we know the term abracadabra, which means I create what I speak. So we're programming this reality according what we think, what we say, and even more so, what we do. Because at the end of the day, everything comes down to what we do. It's not enough to talk and to know a lot of things, but it's really how we act in this reality. And the code name of Joseph, that is the center of our story, is the key to that. So, like we know, we don't discuss biblical stories or historical events or the biographies of certain people, but I do want to mention some points about the biblical context of Joseph, because it's essential key to what we studied here tonight. So we studied that all this patriarchs, so to speak, we talk about like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph are actually code names for realms of dimensions of different forces of energies. We know that the tree of life is a circuit board of energy, and we're the consumer at the end. So the whole point that we discuss those stories is to unlock the understanding what it means to connect to that sphera. We don't discuss those upper three because they're outside the realm of our physical reality. And since we are in the system of the seven, we want to focus on really mastering that system. So every time we discuss Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, we're going to discuss later Moses and Aaron. And this is King David, which is the physicality. So our understanding of each one of those code names is actually a key to unlock a connection to realms that sustains this reality. So the code name of Joseph is very, very important code name to understand, because Joseph is our connection, is our funnel into the upper worlds. It's a connection to the higher dimensions. So all the sustenance that flows in this reality comes through the sphera of Joseph. It's not about a person. It's not about the fact that he's a male. It's not about that. The only reason we use male and female in Kabbalah, because male represents the right column, represents source, represents giving. The female pertains to physical realities, the vessel that holds the light. So we're not talking about Joseph, a gender, or Josephina, the girl. It's not about that. So we're really talking about force, right column force. So why it's important to understand the connection to Joseph? Because physical reality has no energy of its own. It's an empty shell. There is no life in physical reality unless it's coming from the upper worlds. So why it's important for us, what's in it for us as co-creators in this reality? Because the more we connect, the more we understand the dynamics, how this energy is funneled into this reality, the more effective we can be as co-creators. Even more so, the more we can fulfill our purpose to be created as human beings. Because we know it's not about, like some philosopher says, it's finding what's the meaning of life. It's actually understanding what's the purpose of our lives here. So the meaning is actually an outcome of understanding what's the purpose. And why the understanding of the code name of Yosef is important is because we're really, and that have to do with Hanukkah, it's about what kind of vessels we're creating this reality to hold the light force of the Creator. Now let's explain a bit about the candles. Now Hanukkah lasts for 8 days, but actually we're lighting 9 candles. Why 9? Because this is the secret of Hanukkah. If you count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is not a sefirah here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is number 9. So the sefirah of what we call Yesod, which means in Hebrew foundation, or Yosef, is number 9 from the top.
Shalom.
Okay, that's number 9 from the top. So when we light those candles, it's not about, like in Jewish tradition, they play the dreidels or eat the latkes. It's not about that. It's really about building a vessel to hold the light force of the Creator. It's also called in Kabbalah Or HaGanuz. Or means light, Ganuz means concealed. Because we have many types of light we learn in Kabbalah. We're not going to go into them. But the most obvious light is the light that we see with our physical eyes. So when we turn off if you go into inside a dark room, we turn off the light, is there still light? There is no physical light, but the light we're talking about is the concealed light. It's not the light that is perceived by the physical senses. Because if you look at a physical light, everything we evaluate in this physical reality, it depends on the reflection of the light on objects. So if you're an artist and you study light and shadow, that you know that once you master the ability, and I'm an artist, so this is what we've all been trained in the foundation of art, is that how you create the illusion of three-dimensional objects is by defining the light that falls on the object. So if you take that into Kabbalistic terms, there is direct light that falls from the upper worlds, and there's reflected light, which is, all those terms are physical embodiments of a spiritual light. So really what we want to understand is how we can connect to that spiritual light. This is what it's about. Now, in order for us to understand about light cannot be contained unless there is a vessel to hold the light. Like that's why we have a candle, because the flame cannot, and the wick, They cannot exist unless there is a candle, or in Kabbalistic, some Kabbalists actually they light olive oil, and there's a reason why it's olive oil. But nevertheless, we actually have three parts. And I'm getting into the details of Hanukkah because it talks about very essential terms in Kabbalah. So it's a great opportunity to understand about the light and the vessel. So we have the candle, we have the wick, and we have the flame. So let's see what each one of those actually represent in spiritual terms. Then we can go to the Zohar because we have some very deep study. So this is, let's say, whether we use wax or we use olive oil, this is the vessel, okay? This is the light force of Creator. And this is the wick. Now, let me ask you, come, please join us, welcome. What is the wick like? What is your understanding? We talk about life force of Creator, and where are the vessels? Now, Kabbalistically, what defines us as a vessel is our desire to receive, which means how much light can you draw? Because one of the most important principles in spirituality, Source or God or the universe, they don't force on us light. Because imagine the power station and you have your iPhone, you hook it up to the electricity, and one day the power station just wants to bombard you with electricity because it just feels like, and it's going to just blow up your circuits and it blow up your iPhone. So that's why in spirituality, Source or God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, does not force spiritual light on us. But it depends on what kind of vessel we cultivate. So the whole principle of studying Kabbalah, which means in Hebrew, Kabbalah, what it means?
To receive.
I know you know, I'm asking other people, Maya.
Okay.
So receiving is really the essence of Kabbalah, because how much light can you receive means how much light can you handle, right? So the vessel is one thing, is how much light how much that candle can burn. And we talk about the light force, which is the flame. Now, what is the wick? What do you think is the wick? What represent in like spiritual terms? Well, the wick is our ability to restrict. Because imagine we say, okay, God, Source, just bring it on. And we're going to just bombard it and just going to get burned like in a few seconds. Just bring it on, right? You ask for it. No, what we learn in Kabbalah, that our definition of our vessel is our ability to restrict. Okay, that's the ability of restriction. Now, why restriction is important? Because restriction is what we call the middle column. Like imagine you have the light bulb, you have the filament in the middle of the light bulb. You have the plus, which is the desire to share, and you have the minus, which is the desire to receive. The two forces need to be balanced by the middle column. That's what we call the wick in the code name, or ptil in Hebrew. Ptil, okay? So that's the lehava, which means a flame. So this is the candle, which is the nail, and the wick. So light force of a Creator coming to us, and we are cultivating the ability to restrict, which means what you get for free in this life too easy for you, you got to be very careful about it. Why? Because if we don't learn how to restrict things, we get burned. Why is that? I'm kind of going through Kabbalistic very basic things because it all has to do with Hanukkah and Joseph and everything. So kind of reviewing a few things.
Isn't that kind of like discernment? The restrictions, setting boundaries, healthy boundaries?
It's one thing, it's one aspect, but also we came here because we came here to be creators. So if you have very wealthy parents and they just bombard you with money, you're going to hate them eventually. Why? Because they don't give you the opportunity to be a creator in this lifetime. So parents with wisdom, that even coming from very wealthy families, they will put boundaries to their kids. Like we know there are some famous stories about a king. He wanted to evaluate. He had 3 sons. How are they able to basically maintain the energy of money and wealth? So he gave each one of them a few seeds of corn. You know the story? So they go for many years. One of them, basically the only one that came back is the one who was able to plant more plants of corn and to multiply that. So the understanding of it's not just about discernment, but also about allowing us as human beings to be co-creators. So the more we're actually able to create something, whether it's money, it's relationship, whatever it is, we can own it. But if we get what we call O Yashar, which means direct light, which comes to us without filament, so there is big high and there's by, like my teacher uses this term. So it can be like a very damaging effect. So that's why the ability to restrict that light, it's really what builds our vessel. It doesn't mean like when good things come to us, we say, no, I don't want to take it. We want to receive, we learn to receive, but really what we study here today is what that kind of ability or that mechanism of receiving this energy, at the same time expanding the vessel. Because it's all about sustenance. We all have desire. We don't move a finger, wake up in the morning without desire to receive something, right? We have something we want. So that connection through the Sphira of Yesod, which means foundation, this is really the key what we're discussing in tonight. So the fact that we are, we are celebrating that holiday of lights, which is actually not a holiday, it's a cosmic event that happens right now in the universe. And we want to tap into this seasonal opportunity to draw as much light as possible, because this is the kind of light that we want to really connect to. Not fake light or not artificial light, it's really the true light force of the Creator. Okay? Anybody have questions?
Yes, Merav, she has a question.
Yes.
So, what's the week represent? Represent us?
No, it's
Week.
all part of us. The week represents our restriction. The middle column is the middle column. Yeah.
I have
So,
a question.
yes.
Sorry. Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
It's no relation to the Nativity Joseph, is it?
No, not Jesus' father. No, that's the
Oh,
Joseph,
okay.
the son of Jacob.
Just
But like we
interesting.
studied, no, of course. But like we studied previous classes, we're not talking about again Joseph the patriarch. I mean, we have the story, and I'm going to tell you the story briefly because it's going to, the codes are going to be relevant to understand. Like just like the
You
candle.
said biblical code, so
No, I know the Bible itself is the code, but just like the candle is a code, everything is codes. So tell briefly the story. Joseph was sold to be a slave in Egypt by his brothers, and he was in a dungeon for 13 years. And after 13 years in the dungeon, that was the end of his sentence. I'm not going to go into the story, but he basically was pulled out of the dungeon because he was able to decipher dreams of Pharaoh. Okay? Because he's able to decipher dreams, he was put the second in command in Egypt. Imagine being from like in the depth of the dungeon as a slave, as a Hebrew slave. If you know like about Egypt in those days, they were one of the most racist civilizations that ever lived. They hated foreigners, and for them foreigners were like worse than like garbage. So imagine a Hebrew slave, a foreigner, a stranger, who became the ruler of Egypt, basically Pharaoh.
Blink of eye.
Excuse me?
In a blink of eye.
In a blink of an eye. But as we learned, there is nothing that happens in a blink of an eye. There's a process.
Right.
Okay? So he was pulled out of the dungeon, and Pharaoh gave him his seal, which means Joseph became the funnel of sustenance for the entire empire of Egypt those days. Pharaoh was only first in command in terms of like his respect and his ego, but he gave Joseph the entire rulership of Egypt. So, as we can already understand, Egypt represents physicality, and Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means very narrow place. It's like when we're coming into birth through the womb, it's a very narrow place.
Birth canal.
So that's the birth canal. So Joseph's rulership of the entire empire of Egypt represents our potential wisdom to attain this week to be the rulers of our physical reality. This is what we really want to connect to. Okay? Now a few things about his. We're going to talk about the dream, etc. But a couple of things to think about. First of all, the fact that he became a king in Egypt, it's not a surprise, because while he was in the dungeon, he was already king in his mind. He knew what he's going to be. Even in the dungeon, he was ruling the dungeon. He was kind of running the prison, so to speak. And his vision never left him. He knew exactly what he wanted to be, and he became what he wanted to be. It's not a surprise. It did happen in a blink of an eye, but it was a process. So what's in it for us? We all, in our lives where we are right now, there can be some sort of a dungeon. It can be financial dungeon, it can be mental, emotional, whatever it is. So what is really the tool we're tapping into to be in that dark place, because in Hebrew, dungeon, it means bowl. It's in Hebrew, it's written like that. There's a bowl. It means dark dungeon. And there is, as opposed to bowl, there is be'el. There is a well. So bowl is dry place. There is nothing. It's dark. Be'el, there is water. There's flow. There's life going on. So what is the tool that we can connect, especially on this week, in whatever form of dungeon we may have in our lives? What is that source we connect to? And that's what we're learning. That's that flame that we never let go of. Even if we're in the darkest place we could be right now, it's not a physical flame. That life force of Creator is there. The fact that you're actually sitting and breathing and you're digesting food and there's like things happening in your body, it's a proof that life force of Creator is flowing through you, right? It means that you're alive, what we call chi, or in other traditions they have different names for that life force, or the force in Star Wars, right? That's the force, okay? So that force, there's always some kind of minimal force that maintains your body, maintains your physical activities, but there's much more that we actually, the sustenance that we can receive, the abundance, not just financial, it's beyond what we could dream. But what we really want to focus on is how we can expand our vessel so we can receive. However, we want to learn that the receiving aspect is very tricky, because it's not about receiving for the self alone. It's receiving in order to
share.
Exactly. Because that's what makes a difference between a cup of water that you can fill the cup. There's so much you can fill the cup, and that's it. But we learn in Kabbalah, if you make a little hole in that cup, I'm not going to do it here because it's going to be problematic. But when we have a hole in the cup, there is no limit how much water can go through the cup, because there's continuity. So the Sephirah, or the understanding of Yosef, or the Sephirah of Yesod, the foundation, it's all about continuity. And by the way, the word Joseph or Yosef in Hebrew comes from the word lehosif, means to add. Always adding something to this reality. We all came here to add. And we know that in this reality there are the givers and there are the takers. The givers are those who produce, they create, and the takers are those basically they feed on what others create for them. So our understanding is really to be really connected to this immense and endless source of sustenance, is to be producers, to be creators. But like I said, there's laws, so we can receive, we expand our vessel, we can receive more, so we can share more. Because if it's only about us, that's what we're going to study tonight. If it's only for us, it's death. It's complete death. Doesn't matter if you ask billions of dollars or whatever you ask. If it's just about you, without the continuity, what's in it for other people, creating value for others, that's death. Okay? So let's go into the Zohar study and we can start.
A quick question. So how this week, the portion of the week and Hanukkah and the end of the month of Sagittarius connected together?
Like we know, it's a great question. We know that there are seasons. There's always seasons for everything. Like we have summer, we have the winter. There are different times, there's windows of opportunities. Like you plant certain crops in a certain season. Like now in Mount Shasta, you're not going to pretty much plant anything because it's not the season energy. Now, without going to the depth of the month of Sagittarius, which have a certain energy, there is a reason why we're doing in that month. But I want to go inside the discussion of why Sagittarius and one Capricorn. I don't want to get into astrology. It's not about that. But really to tap into the power of season, I'll give you a little story, an example. When the Nazis were approaching Moscow, where actually I think it was almost the winter, and the Nazis were very, very strong army, and the Russians, they didn't have the power of the Germans, but they have a strategy, thinking that way. Basically they use the power of season to overcome the Germans. What they do, they pull them deep into the Russian winter until they came so deep inside the winter, and that they knew that once they are deep in the winter, they're going to surrender. They're not going to be able to win the war. And that's what they made them win the war, because they knew there are certain cycles. And I'll give you an example of something very simple. There are seasonal cycles. Like we know that there's a reason why we have two kind of new years in Kabbalah. One is the new moon of Libra, and one is the full moon of Aries. So I have two New Years in the year. One is spiritual, one is physical. So there are cycles, and there are cycles within the cycles, and there is a system. So the whole point of us learning those cycles, so how we can tap into them and how we can utilize the energy for a positive purpose. Because we know that also there are very negative forces on this planet for eons, has been using the powers of astrology and energy cycles to subdue people and to control them. Like we know the story of Purim, for example. They used those black magicians, what you want to call them, or black wizards or sorcerers, whatever you want to call them. They tapped into certain powers. They could actually use them while people, spiritual powers were dormant. And there's some seasons that the spiritual powers are dormant. So now the spiritual power is actually very strong. That's why it's called the concealed light, because it's not the light you see with your eyes. It's not like you see blinking flashlights in the sky. It's something that you have to tap into. That's why we are so fortunate to have the Zohar, so we can create a channel to connect to that life force of Creator and to build that vessel right now. Because we're always talking about building a spiritual bank account. So the Zohar is a tool that allows that to do that. Okay?
Yeah. Somebody used the term of, imagine you have only 10% of battery in your cell phone and it's lasted for 8 days. So this is the miracle actually. We are celebrating a Hanukkah that it was, like metaphorical.
I mean, I don't want to get into the story because it's not we're not about commemorating what happened in that particular battle. I don't want to go into that. But it's really, because everybody have our own battles right now.
Yeah.
But the whole point is like you can tap into that. If you know how to use the tools, you tap into that source, that recharge source, that endless recharge. But you need to have the capacity to hold this light and to have the wisdom that you know that this light you receive is for the sake of sharing. So you create the continuity. Okay? So let's go to the Zohar. Verse number 1. ויהי מקץ, רבי חייא פתח ואמר, קץ שם לחושך ולכל תכלית הוא חוקר אבן אופל וצל מוות. היקרא יתמר, קץ שם לחושך, דא איהו קץ דשמאלה, דאיהו שעת בעלמה ושעת לעילה, וקיימה כמי קודשא בריחו, ואסתי וקטרג על עלמה, והא יתמר, ולכל תכלית הוא חוקר, דהא כל עובדוי לאו אינון לטב, אלא לשצאה תדיר ולמעבד כליה בעלמה. In translation. And it came to pass at the end, which is the meaning of the portion, the end, at the end of 2 years. Rabbi Chia opened the discussion with the verse, he puts an end to the darkness and searches out all perfection, the stone of darkness and the shadow of death. It's from the book of Job. He puts an end to darkness is the end of the left, which is not included within the right. It is the Satan, which will explain what is the Satan Kabbalistically. The angel of death, he hovers about the world and incites people to sin or transgress. He hovers above and stands before the Holy One, blessed be He, and blames and accuses the world. As it is written, he searches out all perfection. In Hebrew it's tachlit. For his deeds are not intended to achieve good, but rather to exterminate. In Hebrew it's lechalot. And bring extinction to the world, as he takes the souls of men and women and kills them. So we explained that the term of when we talk about the end of that darkness. What is darkness Kabbalistically? Darkness, like I said earlier, it's that place where I desire to receive. It's only what's in it for me. It's all about me. That's death, like I said before. So when we talk about the left column, we know that the left column represents our desire to receive. So what?
No, I'm just looking to open the.
Give me. You have the remote control.
This is what I'm looking for.
It's hanging on the wall.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you know how to use it?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's quite cold now.
Let's put the fan. Okay. So we talk about. It's gonna start in a couple minutes. So we talk about putting the end to the left column or that particular desire. We're not killing the desire within us, but we're actually transmuting the desire to receive, for the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. Okay? So everything in our lives, when it's focused just what's in it for us, or motivated by selfishness, it basically brings death into our lives. Okay? So that's what we learn. That's the first thing we learn here. Now, what we want to is, in this week, we want to tap into the wisdom of connecting to the endless source of abundance. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So what you're saying is receiving just in the left without giving from the right ultimately results in death because of the selfishness?
No. A left column, it represents our desire to receive. And what we do, the right column is how we give. It's basically we receive the energy. We have the middle column because the middle column is what allows us to create balance, because you cannot just receiving.
Choice to choose.
Free will.
Yeah.
Or just giving, because if you just give, you deplete yourself. If you just take for yourself, you kill yourself, literally. So the whole understanding is how you create circuitry, because you know that there's times you have to restrict. Yeah. Even sometimes you receive this tremendous, something tremendous abundance coming at you. You always want to make sure you have actually a vessel to receive that. That's what we call the restriction, because if something huge coming to you, say, 1 second, where it's coming from? You want to evaluate. Because it's very easy, where human beings all have weaknesses. Something can come to us, it looks so fantastic, so amazing, like too good to be true. And if you don't have the tools of restriction, say, okay, where is it coming from? What's the agenda behind this? Am I really capable to handle this? Because when Joseph, he left the jail, he did inner work on himself for 13 years. So when he was put in that position to be the second in command in Egypt, he was ready.
Yeah, well.
He was ready. So it looks like it's a blink of an eye, but imagine that we've been working for many years, many years.
14 years being in jail, yeah.
13.
13, yes.
Whatever it is you've been working, whatever amount of time you've been developing and cultivating, when the time is right, you know it's right. You know it. You've been ready. You've been prepared, because they've been always studying those a lot of success stories, business success entrepreneurs, and they write, overnight he became or she became this billionaire or millionaire. It's not overnight. It's a process of many years. And building the vessel, it's really what allows those people to stay successful. Because there have been some cases of people who became very overnight stars in Hollywood, but as fast as they became stars, the star also basically burned out, because so much energy has come into their lives, they were not able to hold all this energy. So that's why a lot of people in Hollywood, they get burned. Drugs, all kind of things, because there is no vessel to hold that stuff. So we talk about the end of that left is that the end of our selfish desires. Because we've been, like I said, we have big dreams, a lot of things we want to do. But we always want to ask ourselves, why do we want to do those things? See, that's because we want to have our ego inflated, because we just want to have a lot of money, because we want to have 10 cars or 10 houses or whatever it is. In other words, how we want to evaluate our desire, not just for the receiving, but also the desire to share that, what we receive, the goodness.
So
Okay.
basically what you're saying is to be discerning, and that's the middle, when the receiving is coming in and you're discerning how much flow. So not too much, not too little, but to balance it.
Well, it can be a lot. I'm not saying not to receive a lot, and we want to also cultivate the desire to receive a lot. But when it's coming to you, you want to use discernment, because you always want to see where it's coming from, if it's coming from the right source. Okay? Because sometimes there are strings attached, but you don't see them. There's many different cases. But the ability is not, it's just bringing me, I just want to receive law of attraction and all these things, Law of attraction. But always have that discernment, where it's coming from, for what purpose, and most importantly, what's the vessel they created to hold that stuff. The vessel is really important.
So it's more about discerning the source.
Not just discerning everything, all the aspects. Discerning your desire to receive is even more important. Because you can ask for something and then something coming to you, but not always coming from the right source. It may appear so, because each one of us have our own baggage of karma from this lifetime, past lifetimes. And the more we advance on this pathway, the more we start to recognize the things that are coming at us. We can also see opportunities that we actually have to take. We have to take charge. We say, okay, this is the time for me to say that, to do this action, to be proactive, of course. Not just sitting and just receiving. You have to be very active. That's why we have the left and the right column constantly.
So when Joseph became the second man in Egypt,
Mhm.
after being a Hebrew slave for 13 years, So what was his agenda, like big agenda, because he needed to hold this huge vessel in Egypt and be, you know, a man of this king. So what was his vision? Obviously, he had some vision.
Well, let's not talk about his vision because I want to study more. Let's more narrow this question. What's in it for us?
Exactly,
Okay?
yeah.
So everybody have a big vision. Everybody have some kind of vision.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that example of Joseph, he became ruler, became king.
Yeah.
Our desire is to be rulers of our reality. Okay? Now, everybody have different way that they're actually manifesting our rulership. Some of us, they like create art. So the way we work in this reality, we create art because that's how we express our creativity, to be co-creators. So the idea of him becoming a ruler, he's actually came to a point that he was able to control or to be fully aware of his desire to receive for the sake of sharing. In the example of Egypt, he was managing resources, food, money, a lot of things. But he was doing that from a very humble place. The place of humbleness is really the key, because we have an expression in Hebrew, it says eved ki imloch, which means a slave that rules. This is the worst thing, because if a person that have slave mentality is a ruler of a certain organization or a country or a company or whatever it is, this is like the worst ruler to have, because it's a ruler with slave mentality. This is the worst, because they are not coming from the place of they're not coming from a benevolent place to be the distributor of resources, because this is what Joseph he represents. He's the distributor. He's the funnel of all that sustenance that's coming from the upper worlds into this physical reality called kingdom. So ideally, we all want to be that to attain that awareness. So we are the rulers, and we can funnel this energy. We can draw this energy, and we can contain it, and we can distribute it effectively. It's easy said, but it's very difficult to do. But it's not impossible. That's why we have the assistance of the Zohar this week to connect to that ability, to that level. Now, if it's endless source of energy, why don't we always feel and experience it in our own lives? Like, we know that there's endless source, like, you know, it's endless always, but why we don't feel it all the time? Like, sometimes we feel abundant, sometimes we don't. What's the reason, you think?
Helps with discernment.
Yes, it's part of it. Yes.
You know what it feels like to be connected, and then you know what it feels like to be not connected, and so you can discern when you're receiving the source. Perhaps.
It's a great answer, because it's part of the answer to the question, because what we learn in Kabbalah, that there is a term called shivui tzua, which means resemblings of form, which means if we want to attract a tremendous force, light force, we have to be similar to that, what we want to attract, right? Because if you want to be in loving relationship and you are a hateful person and you're angry all the time, you cannot attract that person. You have to be resembling. It doesn't matter, you have to have the same personality or same interest, but there needs to be some resemblance in your thought, in your way of being, so you can attract that person. The same with light force of energy, of sustenance. So the reason we not always feel that we have that, because we have yet to attain that level of resemblance to that force. Because we know one of the basics principles of Kabbalah, what's the essence of the light force of creator, or what's the attribute, the main attribute? It constantly wants to share. God doesn't want anything from us. Source doesn't want anything. There is no left column. It's completely sharing. Why? Because source he has his own source of energy. He's the creator of energy, of sustenance. So source doesn't want anything from us. It's only us that we feel lack sometimes. But having this lack is not a bad thing, because when we have lack, we can create the desire to receive more. Because, like we said, necessity is the mother of invention, right? When we need something, like I want water because I don't have water, so I'm going to take the water, I'm going to drink. So that lack, it's not a bad thing. Like we spoke about it last week, about when we have pressure. Remember we spoke about the pressure last week? Pressure is not a bad thing in our lives, because it's pushing us to ask for more, to pursue more, to expand our vessel. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we really what we want to learn, that the teaching of Yosef is how we resemble, we elevate our consciousness, our spiritual tools, so we can resemble more that life force of Creator. It's like, again, it's endless, but we can constantly go up because we're constantly growing. Okay. Now, yeah, we spoke about the example of the couple. So, in order for us to connect to the upper worlds, to the realms of endless sustenance, we actually want to vibrate in the same frequency. Because frequency is a very easy term to understand, right? We want to learn how we can vibrate in that frequency in more Kabbalistic simple terms, how we evaluate our desire, not just the desire to receive, but also desire to share. This is how the frequency really, what it's about. It's not like, oh, I'm vibrating pure love and I'm vibrating cosmic bliss, like a lot of people use those terms. These are all beautiful and nice terms. But at the end of the day, you want to evaluate your desire to receive versus your desire to share. This is what it's all about. Okay? So what we really, I want to take from that verse is, when we ask only for ourselves, whatever it is, whatever the magnitude what we ask, this is the death right there. So even if you ask for physical immortality, it's all about you. So who cares, right? I want to be physically immortal. But if you know how to ask for something that will, as a result, you will achieve that, the right way to ask that. Because let's say you ask, I want to ask for physical immortality for everybody. That includes you too, right? So it's a good way to recalibrate what we ask from Source. Because Source knows what we want, because Source gave us those desire to ask from the first place. But Source wants us to create that vessel. This is what the key, what we're discussing into, how we build that vessel. Okay? And of course, thinking in very big way. Expanding vessel means we ask for big things, because there is no lack of the abundance that we can be given. Because Source wants us to be the agents of benevolence in this reality. There are the agents of the non-benevolence that are actually doing a very good job in this reality too. But we want to be the agents of goodness. So Source says, come on guys, ask for more. It's not enough what you ask. Ask more. There is no limit how much we can be given. The resources are infinite.
Our teacher used to say, if you ask for something and you didn't receive, doesn't mean that you not deserve. You need to ask for more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because usually we're so afraid to ask for, give me this. No, go for it. Yeah.
Really what we want to remember is that our biggest enemy is being selfish. In Hebrew, selfish is rasha. It means the acronym Ratzon Shel Atzmi. The word evil in Hebrew is an acronym for being selfish. Okay, that's because if you look at the things that evil people do in this world, it's coming from very selfish reasons. They think that they're actually doing something good sometimes. Maybe they don't even care what they do, whether they do it because they want to do it. So the essence of being evil is selfish. Okay, so this is what we want to evaluate, our desires, where we are in that scale. Okay, let's go move to verse number 2. אבן אופל וצל מוות, דע אבן נגף, דבה כשלין חייבין, וקיימה בהי דיקרי ארץ עפתה כמו אופל. תחזה, אית ארץ חיים לעילה, והי איהו ארץ ישראל, ואית ארץ לטאטה, ונקרא אופל וצל מוות. אופל דנפקה מארץ עפתה. מהי אבן אופל וצל מוות? דהו קץ, דאיהו מסתרה דחושך, זוהמה דדהבה והיתמר. Translation: the stone of darkness and the shadow of death refers to a stumbling stone, namely Satan. Now the word Satan in Hebrew comes from the word lahastin. Satan, what we know in English, comes from the Hebrew word Satan, which means to divert you from the path. Lahastin means to remove you from the path. That's the purpose, what they call the opponent. It's a force that constantly challenging us to stay on the path. That's what the meaning of the word Satan. Okay. The Satan is called a stumbling stone. It's like when you walk on the path, if you don't pay attention, you're stumbling and you fall. Okay, it's called the stumbling stone. Because the wicked stumble and sin on it. They don't know they stumble, and they divert from the path, and they are continuing down this steep or negative path, or not very benevolent, so to speak. It abides in that which is called a land of gloom, as darkness itself, from the book of Job. Come and behold, there is the land of the living above, which is the land of Israel, namely the Nukva of Zeir and Pina. When you talk about Israel, it's not about the land of Israel. It means the consciousness of being an Israelite. We know that the consciousness of being Israelite means to be aligned with Source. So when we are aligned with our desire, what we want to receive and to share, we are unlikely to stumble upon the stone. We actually can recognize that stone before we step on it. We can see that. So we become much more aware of those stumbling stones. Okay? Some things maybe in the past, before we studied Zohar or Kabbalah, we did not notice these could be stumbling stones, but now we can see that in advance. Like we know that a smart person, they can fall into the dungeon, they can find a way to get out of it. The wise person will not fall into the dungeon from the first place. They already can know how to avoid it. And more so the stumbling stone. Okay? So there is a land below called darkness and the shadow of death, namely the darkness that is issued from the land of gloom, which is the nukva of klipa. Nukva, it means a hole, or like I forgot that word in English. It's a place that can, it's a hole that wants to be filled. Okay, now there is a negative aspect of it, which is the desire for this to receive for the self alone. So if we are prone to do certain things from that consciousness, we know that we're ruled by that negative force, because desire to receive for the sake of sharing is the positive aspect of it. What are the stone of darkness and the shadow of death? They ask. They are the end on the side of darkness. They are the Satan, the dross of gold, as we have already learned. Now, interesting enough, in Kabbalah, they also attribute precious stones to the columns. So we have the left column and the right column. Left column is gold, is the desire to receive. Because if you look at gold in a magnifying glass, what's the color of gold under magnifying glass?
Green.
It's red.
Oh, red.
It's red,
oh.
yeah. It's red, actually. So gold is left column. And what is right column, precious stone? Silver, kesef. Kesef in Hebrew, it means silver, but it comes from the word kisufim, it means yearning. So it's not like one stone is good and one is bad, but if you look at Kabbalistic rituals, all they use the cup for the wine, everything
It's
is
all silver.
it's all made of silver. It's right column. It's actually in silver in Kabbalah. It's more superior to gold because it's right column energy. So that's why they use silver. So there's energy for that as well. So when we talk about the residue of the gold, it's like the residue of the left side, like the most negative aspect of it. Okay.
However, you can use gold for a good.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with gold.
Yes,
I'm not saying
sure.
what we
yeah,
say.
we're not talking about money right now.
Yeah, I'm not talking about money. Yeah, exactly. So let's move to number 3. תחזה כמה איתלון לבני נשה להסתכלה בפולחנה דקודשא בריחו ולהשתדלה באורייתה יממה ולילי בגין דאינדאון והסתכלון בפולחני דהה אורייתה היא מכרזה בכל יומה כמי דברנש ואמרה מי פתי יסור הנה חסר לב ואמרה לו והאו כמנה מילי. Translation. Come and behold how much it behooves people to look into the worship of the Holy One, blessed be He, and strive to study the Torah day and night, so they will know and behold His worship. For the Torah proclaims every day before people and saying, whoever is simple, let them turn in here. For them that lack understanding, she says to him. We have already explained this matter. But first of all, when we talk about the Torah, I'm not talking about studying the Bible. I'm talking about connecting to the wisdom of the Zohar. Torah means in Hebrew, guidance. So when we say we occupy ourselves day and night, which means everything we do, our thought, our actions, our being, are aligned. I mean, sometimes we fall off the wagon because we're human beings. Things happen to us. Sometimes we have doubts, sometimes we have fears, sometimes we have angers. Things are always happening in life. But nevertheless, when we hold to that wisdom, and when we talk about worship, it's not like we're worshiping an idol. Actually, we are connecting to a supreme intelligence that runs this universe. So the worship is actually, it's been expressed how we live our lives. That's what it means. It's not like you bow to something. It's not about that. It's about how you embody that in your life. This is what it comes down to. I'll make this a little bit lower. Okay. So let's continue. Anybody have questions, any comments, observations you want to share? Okay, all right, let's move on.
Merav says we are walking miracles.
Yes, we are. We are walking miracles. Yeah.
Beseder, tov.
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
Could you just go over the silver and the gold again and what they mean in Hebrew?
Well, silver is right column energy, is the energy of sharing. That's why it's white, because we know that right column is white, and gold is left column energy, is the desire to receive. So I'm not gonna get into a deeper explanation, but this is really what's the essence of it. That's why silver is a superior stone to gold in Kabbalah.
And what are the Hebrew words?
Kesef. Kesef is in Hebrew silver.
It's like also money.
It means money, yeah. But it's funny, but money actually starts with gold.
She said it means yearning.
Yeah, kesef comes from the word kisufim, which means yearning.
Kisuf.
Yeah, it's right column energy, and gold is zahav in Hebrew.
So is it actually the color silver or is it the precious metal silver? I ask because there's people that are channeling higher dimensional beings that are talking about the earth being bathed in the platinum ray right now, which I would say not the platinum metal, but more of chrome, that shiny, almost doesn't even have a color is what, and so I'm wondering how that relates to the silver in Kabbalah.
Well, it sounds like it's white light. So the white is the color that represents the right column energy, which means the right force of creation. That's why mother's milk is white. That's why semen is white. It's right column energy versus blood, which is red. It's judgment. So each one has their own role in our body. So like one is more important than the other. But when we talk about colors that represent columns of energy, right is white, left is red, and middle is green. So
But red is, blood is life force.
it is, yeah.
And it's interesting that gold is read under the microscope because in the chakra system, red is the base chakra, which is foundation of home and relationships, and they're all good colors.
Oh, they're all good. No,
Yes.
I'm not saying anything is bad from the other. I'm just explaining the columns, how they're represented by different colors. So it's not like one. We need blood, so
Yeah.
we cannot survive without the blood, of course. So let's continue to verse number 6. וכל בני דמהמנותה ישראל, כולהון מתתקפין באילנה דחיי, כולהו אחידין באילנה ממש, מנהון בהוא גופה דבי, מנהון אחידן בענפין, מנהון בעלין, מנהון בשרשין, השתכחו דכולהו אחידן באילנה דחיי, ואינון דמשתדלין באורייתה, כולהו אחידן בגופה דאילנה, ובגין כך מן דאשתדל באורייתה, איהו אחיד בחולה, והאו כמוה ויתמר. Translation. All those of the faith, means Israel, are strengthened by the tree of life. They all hold onto the tree, but some of them hold onto the trunk, some to the branches, some to the leaves, and some to the roots. Therefore, that they hold onto the tree of life. All those who are occupied in the study of the Torah hold to the trunk of the tree, and for that reason, he or she who studies the Torah holds onto the whole tree, because the tree trunk includes all of it. This has already been explained. So what we learn here is what is really the tree of life. We know that the tree of life, it's a code. It's not just a tree. But why, first of all, we use the word tree? Why we don't say the rock of life? Or why don't we say the river of life? Why do you think it's a tree? What's the reason of? There is the Hebrew codes of the name, but the essence of the tree, if you think about why it's a tree, what it's really, what's the importance of that symbol for you? What do you see that?
As above, so below.
Yes, it's beautiful, yeah.
I saw it as a metaphor for the shedding, the constant birth and death and cycle of rebirth. So the leaves can represent the humans dying and shedding and feeding, nurturing the roots, and then once again in the spring becoming life again.
Okay, thank
The
you.
trees have a big secret because they are going against the gravity. They're growing against the gravity. They have also, shorashim.
Roots.
Sometimes I have a blackout.
Roots, yeah.
But yes, it represents going out
Against gravity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
against
Yes, and it's a tree. It represents growth, and many times humans are called in Kabbalah Adamu Etz HaSadeh. The person is the tree of the field. Why? Because we're here to go beyond the forces of nature, which go beyond gravity. But also, if you look at trees or plants, for that example, they have the perfect equilibrium between receiving and giving. Like plants do not produce garbage. Like humans, we eat, so we produce, fecal matter and we produce urine. So we breathe carbon dioxide. We breathe oxygen. We produce carbon dioxide. But we are not in that level of trees that have actually perfect balance. They don't produce refuse trees. So they present the perfect equilibrium between those two forces, the right column and the left column. So when we talk about connecting that forces of the Zohar, of the Torah, our goal is basically to reach that level where we have that ability to work with those energies. Because the life force is endless. It's really, there is no end to the life force. But when we know how to work with it, we become that sphira that maintains the constant flow of that energy into this physical realm. Okay, because in the upper realms, we don't need that. There is no physicality. But because we live in this world of physicality, we need all that sustenance from the upper 9 sephirot. That's why we have 9 candles of Hanukkah. 9. Because these are the 9 that give light to the 10th, and we are the 10th one. We're the physical realm that depends on that sustenance from the upper worlds. That's where it's coming for us. That's why the 9th, it's higher. That's the Yosef. Yosef, like we said, it's adding. So we're adding that light into our lives. So that's the tree. So we talk about the tree of life. It talks about this verse. It's really reminding us or awakening us the desire to connect to that tree of life, because there are many forms of studying in this reality. There's many forms of wisdom. We're not putting down any of them. But really what we want to connect to, that what we call in this time of the year on Hanukkah, the Or HaGanuz, the concealed light. That's the light we don't see with our eyes. That's the light that scientists cannot even prove it exists, because they don't have the tools to measure it. Okay? So if science says, oh yeah, show me the proof to that concealed light. So you can just smile and say, well, you prove it, right?
It's their job anyway. They're going to prove in 30, 40 years, I guess.
Maybe. Because we know in Kabbalah that one of the principles of this wisdom, that the teacher does not have the proof to prove you anything on the non-physical level. On the physical level, we have to embody what we talk about. Like if I'm an artist, I want to teach you art, I have to prove you physically that I can do some art. Right? I cannot just teach you art without actually showing you the art. But in Kabbalah, we're not talking about physical things. So the burden of proving you that what we're teaching, it's not on the teacher. It's your job to prove it, not mine.
Yeah, use it, practice it, and leave it.
Yeah,
and
but here is the thing. We said the word that we used here is the secret of faith. The faith is the emunah. In Hebrew, the word, when you say amen, amen means believe. It means practice. It means craft. It means train. So when I'm telling you, when you say a blessing and say amen, I'm empowering you to be a better manifest, to be a better creator. So when you talk about connecting to the tree of life, it has to do a lot with our faith. The 13 years in the dungeon, what was holding in that story of Joseph, what kept his hope, his secret of faith? It's something that nobody can give you from the outside. It's something you cultivate from the inside. Imagine like being in the dungeon. Nelson Mandela, 28 years in the dungeon in South Africa. What kept him together? And actually he said that he could be released from the jail earlier, but he didn't want to because he didn't feel he was ready. I remember he said that. Nelson Mandela, 28 years in the jail. Can you imagine what kind of faith a person have to maintain in all these years, in the worst places? Like this is like really mind blowing.
Breaking of the ego and
breaking of the ego,
and
yeah,
everything. Yeah, it's humbling. Yeah.
And thank you. You mentioned the word breaking of the ego, because in the candle, on the Kabbalistic tradition, they don't use wax; they use olive oil. Do you know how they make olive oil? Have you seen how they make olive oil? Do you know how they make olive oil? They beat the crap out of the olives. We are until they produce the oil. We are the olives. I mean, how much we have to go through the beating until we produce that oil. You know that there's two paths in this life. There's the path of the Torah, of wisdom, and there's the path of suffering. So Either way, we're gonna get there. The question is how we're gonna get there.
Yeah,
Because the
exactly.
universe wants us to be those producer of that fine oil. This is our qualities. We came here to share. There's something we came here to share. But if we're holding on to what we came to share, we're selfish. They're gonna beat the crap out of us until we produce that oil. So that's the oil of that candle. Okay, that's why they use oil. That's the olive oil. Okay, but when they produce that oil, it's really high quality. But it's a very intense process.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just coming from the olive like simply, you know, like the nectar of the olive, right? It's a little bit, take a little beating. So what we are reminded here in this verse about tree of life is how we connect to the big picture. Why it's important to connect the big picture? Because if you have a goal, that's the big picture. But when Joseph decided his goal is to be the ruler of Egypt, are you willing to pay the price for what you want to achieve? Because to be that connector to that realm, it takes a lot of work. So whatever desire you have, whatever plan you have, are you willing to pay the price? Because when you pay the price, you do all the hard work, invest all the energy, all the hard work, effort and everything, then you own it. So that's kind of the reminder to connect to our big picture. That's one thing. Now another thing is like we said earlier, the tree of life is the circuit board map of energy in this realm. So when we are connected to the tree of life, we want to understand how the energy flows, so we can master each and every part of it, so we can maintain the flow of energy into our lives, so we can become like the magicians of that particular energy. Okay. Now the other thing is, the tree of life is what we want to remember is beyond all the ups and downs that we have in our lives. Everybody have ups and downs. You have good days, we have bad days. Sometimes we have experiences that are not favorable. But again, how can we maintain that connection to the tree of life reality? Because that reality is beyond what we see with our eyes. That's why in Hanukkah it's called the concealed light. It's not the light we see with our eyes. So when connected to the bigger picture, it's going beyond what we see with our eyes. Because if we have a goal and we don't see that goal with our eyes, how we can maintain this connection? The Zohar is giving us the tools to maintain that abilities. Because the vision that you have, whatever it is, to do something really amazing in this reality, who do you think gave you this vision? So you have a purpose. There's a purpose for you to those great juicy dreams that we all have, to whatever extent we have. And if they're not juicy enough, make them even more juicy, because Source wants to give them to you, even bigger than what you want. Ask bigger. That's the tree of life. And what we want to remember is that the tree of life also, it's connecting us to lasting fulfillment. Because there are some goals that once we receive them, we feel empty. Like let's say you have a goal, you achieve the goal, and then you feel like depression suddenly. So it means the goal that we asked for, it was not a long-lasting goal. Long-lasting goals, when you fulfill them, you want more. You keep going. You don't feel like depressed suddenly.
I never feel that.
Good. Good for you. So again, it's about constant.
It's taken me a long
Yeah.
time to produce stuff, so now
Yeah.
that I'm producing, it's like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I just stay in that I stay in the flow.
That's the
Yeah.
immortality.
It's time to, accelerate, and okay, it's complete.
Mm.
And then when the energy comes for the next thing, there's an inspiration, just move on it.
When we have
But
goals, excuse me.
Never feel depressed after a
Good.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because when you have goals
That's
that
me.
also include others in your goal, because you know what you wanted to receive. First of all, because you want it, you want that, which is fine. That's good ego. But then also others receive benefit from your goals. Then you feel fulfilled because there's continuation, there's circuitry. That's the growth, the constant growth of the tree. Okay,
I
so
wasn't talking about ego though. This is something that comes from the spirit that inspires and comes through me as a vessel.
yeah, but ego is not a bad word. I don't like to use the word ego. And there is good ego and there is bad ego. Like we said, the desire to receive for the self alone, that's selfish ego. But that ego that wakes up in the morning, he says, I want to do it. That's a good ego. That's what really moves you. It's not a bad thing. So let's move to verse number 20. Anybody have questions, comments, observations?
No.
Sure. Do you want to maybe give example of expansion of their desires? Maybe for those of you who have been coming to the class for some time, do you want to maybe share some example that you have certain goals or some what we call a vessel, and then something happened maybe as a result of this class, maybe through this time, that something expanded in you? Maybe anybody wants to share something like that maybe? Oh, all right. If you want to think about it, we can talk about it later. So let's continue. Verse number 20. Yes.
Well, what you were saying about ego, the way I would put it is that you want to expand the limited self-sense, which is what people generally refer to when they talk about the ego, to the limitless sense.
Yeah.
To expand it to encompass everything, where it's no longer limited. Right?
Yeah.
That's ego too, but
Mhm.
in our Western culture we tend to use the word ego in a negative connotation,
Mhm.
but we're referring to the limited self-sense.
Yeah.
And that we have to conquer or destroy the ego in order to attain the limitless sense. But it's actually expanding the ego, not
Yeah.
conquering it or
That's
destroying it.
It's a great way to put it. Thank you. It's beautiful. Well said.
I think it's good to have self-esteem.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Because without it, I mean, Joseph, he was pulled out of the jail and was put in front of the most powerful man in the world.
Mm.
And he was talking to him like he had confidence. He just came from the dungeon. Imagine that. So that you need to build that wherever you are for that moment when you have to be accountable for it. Okay, now bring it on. Where are you? Okay, where's the confidence?
Well,
very important.
one thing he was connected to what?
Tree of life.
That's it. He wasn't connected not to his money. He had no money, no parents. His brothers betrayed him. He was like done, gone, right? But he had one thing, important thing,
He
and
had
he
good
was
training from his father for 17 years. He
Right.
was connected. He was
exactly
trained by
to be
Jacob.
trained
So that training was brought him all that tools. So that's what we do here.
to be connected
Yeah.
to source,
Yeah.
and faith.
Yeah.
And when you said the growing desire, I mean, I'm studying Kabbalah more than 16 years. However, when I came to Mount Shasta, we had a desire to study Zohar, and we didn't had anybody. So Baruch started teaching, and it was nice to have few people in the class. We were like so happy, and then our desire grow, and we start, putting live streaming.
Yeah.
Now our desire even bigger, so we are creating a center of Zohar here to share with more people and to have, so it's constantly growing.
Yeah.
There is no end. This is immortality because it's all about
Expanding
seeing
the
it
vessel
together.
and sharing with more
biggest
people.
happiness. I mean, this class makes my week. Really serious. It doesn't matter if it's 2 people sitting here or 20 people, because it's just who feeds the real thing, the connection to source. I know there is a source here. Right now we are connected to the real source without seeing that.
What if you haven't figured out your calling?
You ask for it.
You mean if you're not sure if you figure out your calling?
Well, I'm holding the light, I'm holding space, and I'm keeping very positive thoughts, but I mean, I'm not making art or music or any of those things. And every business venture I've tried doesn't seem to really take off, so I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be when I grow up.
Well, if I may suggest, after the class we can do a little further study, and I think we
Yes.
can answer this question. You can
You
get
can
the
ask
answer.
Zohar, actually.
Yeah, we'll do something that maybe give you some direction. So,
Mhm.
but it's good. It's a good place to be because that's a place
Yes.
that you can ask questions and you will receive the answer if you're ready.
Oh.
It's expand. It's a wonderful week to expand.
Oh yes,
And
and
to have the desire.
I remembered I asked question and then I received the answer because I had this answer for many years ago about the Sagittarius, in the keshet. How you say keshet?
Sagittarius,
Sagittarius. What you do with that?
the bow, shooting the bow,
Shooting.
arrow.
But for if you want to shoot this really far, what you need to do? Really far.
Pull back.
How far you need to, like how strong you need to go,
As much
go,
as you
go,
can.
go, go, go. It's like, woo!
And
This
then
way,
roll on.
not
Yeah.
this way, not like it's comfortable. You just, and then,
Tension. You have to create tension.
yeah. So first you have a goal, and then you,
And you shoot
so
to the goal.
that's actually, I remember this connected to Yosef and this week. That's the
Focusing on
miracle.
the goal, keeping the
That's
goal.
the miracle, and when it's painful, only when it's painful, only when don't let it go when it's comfortable. It's like
Isn't that
Well,
that's
actually-
the symbol of Sagittarius too?
yes,
Yeah, the
yes,
arrow.
that's
Not when I want like to use the word painful, but putting effort into it.
Yes.
Because you can put effort and you have to suffer for it. Because if you
not
say
suffering.
there is a path of pain, there's
Yeah,
a path of
no,
Torah.
not suffering.
The
Sure.
path of Torah, it doesn't have to be with pain. You have to put effort into it.
Yes.
No question about it.
Yeah.
But you don't have
That's,
to go through
yeah.
pain unless you enjoy it, of course. So.
No,
Okay.
thank you. I'm not in this lifetime.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you.
All right.
I had enough.
Okay. Verse number 20. How are we doing with the time, by the way? Quarter after 9, okay, 45 minutes, all right.
Shalom Atara, Atara she says hello.
Shalom Atara. Atara, she's the lady who runs. Who
And
owns
Lena,
this-
she is writing in Russian, but I said I cannot read Russian, so I'm waiting
Lena,
for...
she's my aunt from Israel.
Yeah, she's writing in Russian. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I know lots of languages, but I cannot read Russian yet.
Okay. All right. Привет, Lena.
Привет, Лена, спасибо.
A little bit of Russian, okay.
Shalom.
אוקיי, ותחזה, ההוא נהר שבע, דרגין השתקיין והתברכן מיני, ואילן עינון יפות מראה ובריאות בשר, ותראינה באחו, בחיבורה באחוותה דלה השתכח בהו ברודה, וכולהו לשבחה קיימין, דה כל הני דרגין, שבע דקאמרן רזה איהו, כדה ואת שבע הנערות הראויות לתת לה מבית המלך וגומר, ועד שבע פרות יפות מראה, ולקבל דה כתיב, שבעת הסריסים המשרתים את פני המלך וגומר. Translation. Come and behold, from that river, namely Yesod, the 7 grades of the Nukva, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut in her, that were extending from her, and were situated in the world of Briah, are watered and blessed by it. These are the 7 well-favored and fat of flesh cows. I'm going to explain those cows in the dream of Pharaoh. Who fed in the reed grass, that is, they fed together in friendship, and there was no separation among them. All of them stand to be praised, for there is no nourishment for the other side, for these 7 grades are the mystery of the verse, and the 7 maids chosen to be given her out of the king's house, which refers to the 7 temples of Briah, all of which are praiseworthy. And so are the 7 cows well favored, all to be praised. In contrast, the 7 chamberlains who served in the presence of the king from the book of Psalms are not to be wholly praised, for they include a portion of the powers of defilement, which is the secret of the 7 lean cows. So what are you talking about? Excuse me. What brought Joseph out of the dungeon? He was able to decipher Pharaoh's dream. What was the dream? He had 2 dreams. The first dream he had, it was about, he saw 7 cows coming from the Nile, the river, the Nile River, and then 7 skinny cows came and they ate them. He couldn't understand the meaning of this dream, and he went to all his sorcerers of Egypt. Nobody could decipher the dream. And then one of his ministers, he used to be in the jail with Yosef, and he said, oh, there's this servant, this slave in the dungeon. He's really good with dreams. He said, bring him out. And when he told him the dream, he told him immediately what it means. Why? Because he's had the wisdom of Kabbalah. He knew what those cows represent. So he told him, the next 7 years are going to be very fat and very abundant. After that, we're going to have 7 years of drought, and there's going to be a lot of hardship. So we have to be prepared for those 7 years. And when Pharaoh heard that, he said, okay, you are... And there was another dream, I'm not going to the second dream, which is very similar in nature. What we learn here, what those cows represent. They represent the 7 grades that we're talking about here. Not those upper ones, those 7. It talks about the perfection of the system of the 7. Now, the other thing that we'll learn here is what we learn, because it talks about also the lean or the starving cows. It talks that when we are progressing in life, an essential part of our progress is also to go down once in a while. We cannot just always gonna be up all the time. There is time that we are going down a little bit. Why? Why are we going down sometimes?
The pendulum swing.
Pendulum swing, that's the dynamics, but what's the spiritual cause? What's the spiritual trigger that creates when, I'm going to put the heater again. What does it create when you have that going down?
Desire.
Exactly, lack. You create lack. You create some lack, then of course, if you build the vessel, you don't get crushed by it. And obviously, if we are cultivating better spiritual tools, we can handle better those falls or fallings. We see them as opportunities. So we know that there is lack, so we can create the desire to receive more, then we're progressing more. So the more we can maintain our spiritual wisdom, our fallings are less critical. I mean, we can fall down once in a while, but we deal with that with wisdom. So the falling is actually part of that growth process. Okay, because without we don't have the lack, we don't have the desire to grow. Okay? Now, another thing that we were really reminded here is that how do we really approach our problems or challenges? And what the Zohar is teaching us, A person with a lot of pride, they think that the problems are huge. A person have huge ego, they see the problem and say, oh, this is unresolvable problem because this person is such a big person. So the problems are so big that they are unresolved. However, the secret here, if we have humble approach, so whatever problem we see, it doesn't seem too critical. It means if we see our problems are unresolved, it means it's a good sign to look at our ego, our negative ego, which means that we see ourselves as separate from the source, but as opposed to we see that with a humble. Because when we have humbleness, we can ask for help. Because source wants us to connect to them, to that upper realms. Source wants us to have the desire. Because if we don't have the desire, we're disconnected. So that's how we look at problems from a different perspective. Being humble. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, let's move to verse number 24.
And speaking of cows, in Kabbalah it says like source is like a cow that has more milk than the calf can feed
Yes, yeah.
from.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great reminder. We are like the calves, and the source is like the cow that wants to give us nourishment. How much milk can we handle is pretty much less than what the cow can give us. So it's always how we expand the vessel to receive that nourishment. So it's a great reminder. Thank you, Maria. Okay, verse number 24. והתנינן דה כמה דאיהו ברנש אחי אחזיו לי בחלמי והכין חמי ונשמתה אחי סלקת להשתמודעה כל חד וחד כפום דרגי כדככה זה לי ובגין כך פרעו חמה כדככה זה לי ולה יתיר. Translation. We have already learned that a person is shown things in our dreams according to our character. As a person's soul ascends when they sleep, he or she will receive that which they deserve according to their grade. Pharaoh, in that case, he saw what he was worthy of seeing and no more. So we spoke about dreams last week, that we have three levels. We have a dream, we have vision, and we have prophecy. Prophecy is the highest one. So we learned that in dreams, we can see something according to our ability. And many times we also we're shown things, not always we can understand them. Some things are true, some things are false. And how can we cultivate the ability to really excuse me, to decipher what we see in dreams, because it's beyond our physical reality? How can we get those tools? Is by connecting to this wisdom. For example, studying Zohar at night is really, really great tool. So when we go and travel, when our soul leaves the body at night, we're creating some kind of energetic protection. Because when our soul goes above the astral realms, there's a lot of negative entities that wants to pull energy from you. So there's like different grades of entities that live in the astral realms. But going through them is not always a very positive experience. So the more we connect to this energy, we're actually creating a protection. So we're not affected by them when we go up and we go down. So what we learn here, that there is power and there are messages in dreams. There is no doubt about it, no question. But how can we really connect to those messages? How can we extract the good information, the essential information? So the answer is we acquire the ability to ascend in the reality above the dreams. That's why we have the tools of the Zohar, so we can ascend beyond this reality and to really take our dream art, because it's an art. Understanding dreams, it's an art. And Joseph was a master in that. Egyptians, interesting enough, if you Google Egyptians in the art of dreaming, they were masters in the art of dreaming. Lucid dreaming and all those different things.
Interesting who gave them the knowledge.
Yeah. Well, there's many tools. I mean, they had their own sources of receiving the information, but Yosef, because he had his own training, he could actually to really understand it from a completely higher perspective. Because Pharaoh's advisor gave him their own decipherment, or how do you say deciphering.
Yeah.
They gave him their own deciphering, but he didn't feel there was something, it wasn't right. And when Yosef came in here, he was like, wow, this guy, okay, that's it, done. Immediately gave him his seal and made him like second in command in Egypt. It's completely illogical story. Okay?
That's a miracle, yeah.
It is a miracle. So really the reminder is for us to keep doing our spiritual work, to keep progressing with our spiritual wisdom, because there is no end to that rabbit hole, as Morpheus says in the Matrix. The rabbit hole goes as deep as you want it to go. So keep studying that wisdom gives us more tools, because the reality keep unfolding. A lot of things are happening in our world right now, and we need those tools.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important. So let's go to verse number 25. ויהי מקץ וגומר, רבי חזקיה פתח ואמר, לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים, תחת זה, כל מה דעבד קודשא בריחו לטאטא, לכלה שווה זמנה וזמן קצוב, זמן שווה לנהורה ולחשוכה, זמנה שווה לנהורה דשאר אמין, דינון שלטין השתה על עלמה, וזמנה שווה לחשוכה, דאיהו גלותה דישראל, תחות שלטנותה דלהון, זמנה שווה קודשא בריחו לכלה, בגין כך לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ. מהי ועת לכל חפץ? זמנה ועידן הוא לכלה. לכל ההוא ראותה דשתכח לטאטא. Translation. And it came to pass in the end, like we said, that's the name of the portion, the end, Miketz. Rabbi Chizkiah began with the verse, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose. Excuse me. Under the heaven. Come and behold what the Holy One, blessed be He, did below. He set a time and season for everything, and a fixed term for it. He fixed a term for light and for darkness. He set a time for light for all the nations except Israel, which now have mastery over the world, and he set time for darkness. When Israel are in exile and under dominion of other nations, the Holy One, blessed be He, appointed a season for all, and therefore to everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose. He asks, what is the meaning of "and a time to every purpose"? He replies, it means a time and season for everything that is below, that is, all the goodness found below has a set time and season. So when we talk about where, you know that when the rulership of Israelites on this planet is about the rulership of Israel or the rulership of the Jews, it's the rulership of the what we call the light workers, the alignment of us with Source. The more of us are aligned, because we know that we are in a time frame of 7,000 years. Like we have 7 days of the week, so each day of the week is 1,000 years. And we are right now afternoon of Friday. We are in the year of 5,777 years. So at the end of the 6th millennium, that shift will take place. However, there is a time and season for that. But we can change that. So the more of us awaken to that connection to Source, we can accelerate the process. Okay? So that's what this is one reminder. Now, interesting enough that when the Zohar was written, there was not the country of Israel. So obviously we're not talking about here Israeli people. It's about Israelite mindset or Israelite awareness. Okay? When we talk about exile, it means there is exile of certain individual who by default, or which means actually all of us who are not on the path to be connected to our Israel mindset, they're in exile. Exile means their desire to be connected is in exile. That's what it means to be in exile. Okay? Now,
You're talking about the thought system.
yeah, awareness, yeah. Israelite means Yashar El, which means aligned with Source. That's what it means. So when we talk about there is an exile, which means there is exile of those people who are not aligned with Source. They're in exile from their alignment, which means they're not in the land of Israel, because land of Israel is a code name of a desire to be connected to Source. They are under rulership of other ministers in the world.
Yeah.
They
Lots of Israelis, they are in Israel, but they are not in the land of Israel.
far from that.
They're very
Yeah,
far
so-
away.
So it's not about being Israeli or Jewish, so just make sure you know that.
Even though it's written on Aramaic and Hebrew.
They don't speak Aramaic in Israel too, by the way. So the really important is to remember for about time and place for everything. It's also how it pertains to our lives, that there is, like we said, there is a bigger vision, there's a bigger picture to our lives. So we might think that something happens to us in our lives right now, why it's happening to us, or why it's not happening to us. Why my karma is like that, why my karma is not like that. You see, all those things that we see, because we always evaluate our life depending on our desires. We have goals. Sometimes we achieve our goals, sometimes it takes time, sometimes we don't see how those goals are manifested. So that alignment gives us that connection that will help us to follow through. maybe we need to fine tune our desires, or maybe there needs to be some adjustments to what we want and how we come about to manifest them. But nevertheless, we see the bigger picture. That's really what helps us to be more effective in our reality. Okay?
Yeah, that's what actually gives us hope that we don't stuck in malchut in the first
In the physicality.
in the physic
Yeah.
in that, because this is
This is death. If we're stuck in physical reality,
yes,
it's death.
I mean most of the people that were miserable because this is what they think they are, that life is here only, right? And even though it's so sometimes challenging to live here in physical body, when we understand that we have these upper walls to navigate.
Yeah. To draw sustenance from these realities. This is what it's about. Because if we're the only way we draw sustenance in this life is just from the physical reality, it's very limited. It's very limited. Yeah, we're taught by the code name of Joseph how to tap into the realms of sustenance that are beyond physical. This is what really what it's about.
So when you're talking about expanding the vessel, you're talking about expanding our awareness to expand the vessel?
Absolutely. Awareness, in other words, to expand our desire, because if you don't, expanding your awareness is depending on your desire to expand. So it's really always about the desire. In Hebrew, the word for desire, it's a very important word because it have a big secret. In Hebrew, desire is ratzon. Ratzon, it spells like that. So that's desire. So expanding our vessel, which means the ratzon, it's turned into tzinor, which means a channel. It's the same letters. So it's becoming a channel. So when we transmute our desire and we become a channel, which means there's continuity of flow of energy, that's what it's about. Does it make sense? From the ratzon to tzino. In Hebrew it's easier to understand, but in English it's basically from just a form of desire you turn into a channel. I'm not talking about channeling other beings or other spirits. I'm talking about becoming a channel of energy, of sustenance, that you are the channel. You receive and you share. But that depends on your desire to receive and desire to share. Okay, 32. וישלח פרעה ויקרא את יוסף ויריצוהו מן הבור וגומר. רבי אבא פתח ואמר, רוצה אדוני את יראיו, את המייחלים לחסדו. כמה קודשא בריחו יתראה בהו בצדיקיה, בגין דצדיקיה אינון עבדין שלמה לעילה, ועבדי שלמה לטאטא, ועלין קלה בבעלה, ובגין כך קודשא בריחו יתראה בהו, באינון דדחלין לי ועבדין רעותי. Translation. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. Rabbi Abba opened a discussion with the verse, Hashem, which means the Creator, takes pleasure in those who have awe towards Creator, in those who hope for His mercy, from the book of Psalms. How much the Holy One, blessed be He, delights in the righteous, for they make peace above in Abba and Ima. When we talk about Abba and Ima, it means they create unification in the upper worlds. That's what it means. Abba means father, Ima and mother. But these are two realms. They make peace below in Zeir Anpin and Nukva. Zeir Anpin are those realms, those 6 realms, and Nukva is the physicality. So we talk about how Source wants us to be agents of unification in this reality, not just above but also below. Yosef is what brings the unification between the upper worlds and the physicality. Okay? And they bring the bride to her husband. The Holy One, blessed be He, is therefore pleased with those who fear Him or have awe to Him and abide by His wish. So, a couple of things. How it really comes into manifestation and reality, I spoke about this last week, is the secret of the Shabbat, the Sabbath. Friday is Yesod, because we know that on Friday night we celebrate a wedding between the bride and the groom. So the Friday is the wedding between the physicality, which is Shabbat, to the upper worlds. So when we are creating this unification on a weekly basis, it's a reminder for us to the sustenance, because we know that when we have the 7 days of the week, this is Saturday, and this is Friday. Okay? Why we celebrate Shabbat? Because it's not about because we celebrate because we want to be good Jews. It's not about Jewish holiday. We live in the system of 7. So the unification between the 7 and the 6 brings the 13, which in Hebrew 13 is ahava, means love. It means one, echad. That unity between us and Source, where the bride Source is the groom, is based on love, of unity, of oneness between us and Source. That's the goal we want to cultivate, that the unification between us and Source based on love. Not some philosophical idea, it's really pure love. That we love that Source that created us. Sometimes it's hard to do because we might, we have things in our lives that are not completely aligned with what we want, so we have complaints. We're not always satisfied, but nevertheless, cultivating that love is really the highest form of spirituality. That unity between us and so that oneness. And the Shabbat is a weekly reminder for us to tap into that unity. The real soulmate that we have is Source. And as a result, we also manifest the soulmates in our lives. But this is the first soulmate. Let's move forward. How are we doing the timer?
25 minutes left.
25, okay. Okay, verse number 113. ככה זה, כתיב ויוסף הוא השליט על הארץ. דע שמשה דשליט בסהרה, ונהר לה וזן לה. הוא המשביר לכל עם הארץ. דהה ההוא נהר דנגיד ונפק. מיני התזנו כולהו, ומתאמן פרחין נשמתין לחולה. ובגין דה כולהו סגדין לגבי דההו אתר. דהה לית לך מילה בעלמה, דלה תלי במזלה והוקמוע. Translation. Come and behold, it is written, and Yosef was the governor of the land. Yosef is the sun. The sun is Zeir Anpin. What we call the Zeir Anpin is those upper 6 realms. That's called Zeir Anpin. It's called also the sun.
Sun as in sun in the sky, or sun as in child?
Sun in the sky, yeah, like the sun in the sky. Thank you. So Yosef is the foundation, Yesod of Zeir Anpin, which rules over the moon, the Nukva, shining upon and sustaining her. We know that the moon does not have light of its own. The moon receives the light from the sun. So that's the code name for a vessel that receives sustenance from other source. And it was that sold to all the people of the land, as the river that flows and comes out from Eden. Yesod calls Yosef. So we talk about Eden or Eden, the biblical story of Eden. It's a code name for a place. It's a source of the sustenance. They say there are 4 rivers coming out of the Garden of Eden. So there are 4 different sources of energy. So Yesod is one of them. The Yesod is the source of energy that connects the sustenance from the upper world to this physical reality. It's called Yesod. Okay? It supplies everybody with nourishment. From there, the souls of every human being emerge. Hence, everyone bows before that place, for there is nothing in the world that does not depend upon mazal. Mazal means luck in Hebrew, but it's not something that is arbitrary. It's something that we actually create. So, Yesod, which is the Sphira of Yosef, is the foundation, as Paul already has been explained. So what we learn here, that this is also a connection, the Sphira of Yesod is a connection to the upper realms. That's from where our souls are coming from. Our soul, which is basically implies our souls coming from a very high place. Very high place. Our work is to align or to remind ourselves that connection from where we're coming from. The more we realize our source, the more we actually elevate. The more we realize that source that created us. It's something undescribable. But how many of us actually think about it once in a while, like, wow, who created us really? What's the source from where our souls are coming? Like, can we even understand that logically? We cannot even comprehend that. It's incomprehensible. Is that the word, incomprehensible?
So
it's hard. Incomprehensible. Incomprehensible.
So Baruch Yosef is actually represents the sun. Yosef represents sun, connected to sun. Yosef.
Sun, like the sun in the sky, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because the sun gives the light to the moon. The moon does not have light
Yes.
of its own. So the Yosef represents that, because we have in the tree of life, this is the earth, this is the moon.
Right.
So, and above the moon we have the Zeir and Pin. So the Yosef is receiving the light from the sun. So imagine you walk at night and you have the full moon. So you see the light of the moon in the night, but the light of the moon, it's not from the moon itself.
Right.
So the Yosef represents that source that reflects the light on the earth in the darkness. Because when we talk about darkness, it's all code. So when we talk about the physical realm, it's called darkness. It has no lights of its own. Again, we're not talking about physical light. We're talking about energetic energy, life force. So Yosef is like the moon that reflects the sun, the light of the sun, and it shines this light on the earth. So it's using those code names to kind of use it like in a metaphoric way. Does it make sense?
So yes, beautiful. Because sun is just one, like one of the teachers said, like sun never asks, "Shall I shine?" or "Shall I just,
Does not permission.
That does not ask permission to be sun. That's the power of sun, and just interesting that Yosef is connected to that.
Yeah. Now, a few more things about this. This verse is really, it's a very, very powerful verse. Because first of all, when we read certain verses in the Zohar, it's not just about the intellectual information that we have, but also it have energy. So each verse I've been reading have certain energy to tap into. So this verse is about really connected to the power of prosperity. What's really prosperity? I'm not talking about just financial prosperity. I'm talking about prosperity in all areas in our lives. Prosperity in relationship, in creativity, in ideas, in energy, in
health.
Everything, all in health, in everything, all the aspects. So what we learn here is really understanding the connection to connecting to sustenance. This verse is encouraging us to create that connection to true sustenance, to understand what it's really about. Now, the interesting thing about the Sphira of Yesod, it's the receiver, but it's also the giver. It receives the light from the sun, like the moon. It's also it shines the light. What it means, we are receivers and we're givers at the same time. Is it possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, when you sing a song, like you stand on the stage, for example, and you sing a song, you're the receiver and you're the giver. Like just one example. There's many ways that we can be the receiver.
Simultaneously, it's happening simultaneously.
Exactly, yeah. And if you play the didgeridoo, you learn circular breathing. So you're constantly doing that. It's in another form. So there's ways to do that, but also more so in the areas that really matters for us in our lives. In relationship, we can be the receiver and the giver. Even more so with our talents in our livelihood, what we do for living. That's really the goal. Because that really creates endless fulfillment. You keep doing what you love, you share with others, and you keep doing more of that. Sounds pretty good deal, right?
Yeah. Somebody said, "What you want to be in relationship? You want to be the creator, God, or just the vessel?"
Well, what's the answer?
Both. Sometimes to give, sometimes to receive. But I think you want to be a God. You want to be giving.
I like the word. You don't want to be God in a relationship. You want to be light mode versus vessel mode.
Right.
Let's use the more.
Yeah, light.
Because if you become God in a relationship, it might create some problems with your partner. So it's not about being God; it's being light force.
Light force.
But you want to be both. You want to be light force and the vessel, but more because vessel wants to receive. Light mode wants to give, but it's more about being more of the light mode, more as a giver. Because the more we are in our life, which means we're more proactive, the more we fulfill our purpose to be creators in this reality.
Yeah.
And
Unless the partner wants to be God too.
Well,
Yeah.
well, we don't like the word God is something that I like to leave to the domain that unites all of us together. Because when I say I put myself as a god or goddess, I'm separating myself from others. You know what I'm saying? No, I know. But I know it's a joke, but some people don't think it's a joke. Some people actually, you should see some people what they post on Facebook. So.
That's why you're not you don't, okay. You don't, Facebook.
Now,
I'm talking about Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now he
Yeah.
talks about that Joseph, he became the governor, the ruler. The whole point is really how we really evaluate our life is how we are in control of our life, or more precisely how we are effective in creating life in this reality. Now we can tap into certain goals that not necessarily are aligned with our true or higher will. How do we know that? How do you know if your goals are really aligned or not? How do you know? Like you wake up in the morning, you have, oh, this goal, I'm going to do it. And how do you know if it's actually aligned or not? What's the answer?
Do you feel joyful
You feel joyful, excellent. And what's the second part?
or you feel discomfort?
Well, what I meant is like when you say you feel joyful, actually, that's the first part. The second part, other people feel joyful as a result of what you produce.
Right.
That's how you know you're on the right path. You could feel joyful by killing, God forbid, millions of people, like some people did that. They felt very happy to do that. But those who've been killed, they were not very happy about this. So the whole point is that we feel joyful, creating value for others without harming others. This is really what it's about. We are becoming benevolent force, but also we enjoy it. Like music, art is a great example because you create something you enjoy doing, and then you create beauty, you create inspiration, or it can be films, poetry, whatever it is. You bring goodness to others. There's many ways to do that. So you just choose whatever brings pleasure to you and also brings pleasure to others.
Oh yeah, endless ways.
In endless ways, yeah. You just choose. And experimenting is not a bad thing. You know, sometimes you try many different things.
Yes.
You know, it's also part of the path. You enjoy many different things.
I have a question.
Yes,
You said becoming a benevolent force.
yes.
Isn't that what we already are, though? That's our true nature. Because if we're created by God, God's benevolent. And that's
Well,
what we really are.
Yes, by purpose we are. But how is that coming into play into your reality? I'm not saying you're not, but I saw this demonstration. I'm very very active voice in animals' rights, for example. So there's a company called Canada Goose, it's kind of in Canada. So I saw this activists. They're going to demonstrate today in a mall in some place in Canada, and they show the horrors that this company actually they're not only harming millions of geese, I say geese, right, every year, but also as a result they also trap coyotes because of it's horrible. So yeah, they are they're making a lot of money, they're selling their products, but on the way they harm a lot of animals. So is it a benevolent force? I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. And today we talk about animals, like even the food industry. There's so many replacements these days for animal protein. There's like superior replacements. Amazing. There's cheeses, there's fake meat, all kind of things. So people can still enjoy those things without harming animals. I mean, for me, this is a very important thing, personally. So that's what I'm talking about, being a benevolent force, not on the expense of other living beings, including animals. For me, it's very high priority, personally speaking.
I think it goes back to the Israelite awareness. It's when you're cultivating, when you're staying in that awareness,
Yes.
that you stay aligned with the benevolent force.
Yes, and interesting enough, there is a growing voice. It's still very small, but among Kabbalists that actually speak against harming animals, stop eating animals, including dairy and eggs, because it creates suffering for animals. Simple. They don't speak our language, but they suffer. So we're not benevolent force if we're hurting any animals. Period. And
You don't think that the chickens can just lay the eggs, they're just byproducts, or the cow would give the milk freely because the cow has more than it needs?
well, I think first of all, the design of cow's milk is, if you study the chemistry of cow's milk, is designed to take a 400-pound or whatever 200-pound baby cow to turn into like 500 or 1,000-pound cow. It's designed to grow an animal, not for humans. Because we drink the animal's milk doesn't mean it's designed for us. We don't cause suffering, but if you look at the dairy industry, it causes tremendous amount of suffering. And chicken, you may not, if they lay his eggs, it doesn't mean you harm them. But there's another aspect. I don't want to get into
Of course you harm them. I mean, depends if you see how they grow
Yeah.
the chickens for their
I mean,
eggs.
you can.
But it's not so black and white. I mean, not
I know, of course.
every farm
No,
is
no,
no.
a nasty
No.
farm.
It is not. But there's other reasons, because if you want to get into this, we don't have a lot of time. But on a basic level, when we consume animals' DNA, it becomes part of our DNA. We become more animals. Very simple. I mean, it's not designed for us. That's why consuming plants is more superior to us.
But our soil has been so depleted that it's almost nearly impossible to get all of our nutrients from vegetables right now. They're just not as healthy. They don't contain all the vitamins that we need.
Well, we actually do have a lot of options, like moringa, for example, have all the amino acids. Moringa is complete nutrition, so it's a plant. So we can talk about it more later on. There is no really reason in our day today to consume any animal parts. Nothing, not eggs or nothing. So, but we can get into discussion later.
We are living proof of that for 10 years.
Yeah.
We go and do our
blood test, no
test,
problem, nothing.
there is nothing that missing from our body.
I'd like to see your blood.
Yeah.
We
Please.
can put it under my microscope.
Yes,
sure.
live blood analysis actually. I would love to do that.
Yeah,
In
you
order-
do that, right? Do blood? Okay,
Do you
awesome.
do that?
But you know, that's
Okay,
one,
see.
that's just one form though of the benevolence or not benevolent, and not to take anything away from that, but that's
Yeah.
just one form that it shows up in the world.
Just one, absolutely.
It's just one.
There's so
many.
many. There's so many.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's being aligned with the correct thought system of staying connected to spirit that keeps you in that benevolent, I guess, flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's continue. Verse
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, okay. Verse number 176. ומאן דשתדל בצדקה בהי עלמא, ויתן מממוני בצדקה כדין ועבר בהוא אתר, ולה דחל וחרוזה קרי לה לההי נשמתה, ועיניתיך לא ענך עוד. מאן דזכה למעבר בהי, let לי דינה יתיר כלל. Translation. Whoever is charitable in the world and gives from his or her money to charity passes that place, the Dinur river, without fear. The crier proclaims before the soul, and though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more, which is the last phrase in the verse, for whoever merited to pass the Dinur river is free of judgment. Now, what we learn here, that's the power of charity in this reality. The power of charity, what we learn from the Zohar, is remove judgment from us. I'm not talking about just financial charity, but actually charity in our time, charity in our resources, in our energy. Because when we are connected to that, like we say, force of benevolence, of doing good in the world, we are collecting or we are creating a protective shield, that because when we are in the right column mode, which means we're becoming more force of mercy in this reality. Force of mercy sweeten judgments, very simply. So whether, yes? I thought you want to say something. So force of mercy sweeten judgment. So the more we are acting in this reality this way, the more we can clear our own past. Like nobody have a perfect past. We all have done things maybe we don't like in the past, in this life or past lifetimes. But the more we act in a benevolent way in this reality, we can clear karma and we can go beyond what we call the laws of cause and effect. Because if we've done something very negative in the past, it's only a matter of time until the cause and effect comes into play. The retribution comes sooner or later because we created that karma, what we can learn. The whole point of studying Zohar and Kabbalah, that we go beyond that karma by becoming a more positive force in this reality. That's how we do that. We can break that karma if we are becoming more sources of goodness in this reality. Very simple. That's what he's teaching us here. So let's go move forward. 182. We're almost done. והיקרא וכמוה ביוסף זכאה דלה באה להשלמה בישה לאחוי בשעתה דנפלו בידוי קבל אדוני ויושלח בגין דהו הווה דחה לקודשא בריחו דכתיב זאת עשו וחיו וגומר ואיהו תדיר הווה מחכה לקודשא בריחו. Translation. This verse has been explained in relation to Yosef the righteous, who did not wish to repay his brothers with evil when they fell into his hands. As it is written, do not say, I will repay evil, but wait on Hashem, the Creator, and He will save you. For he feared and had awe to the Creator, to the Holy One, blessed be He. As it is written, these do and live, I have awe towards Elohim. He always waited on the Holy One, blessed be He. So this verse is about forgiveness, because Yosef was sold to be a slave by his brothers. I'm not going to go into the story, but they sold him to be a slave. That's he ended up in the dungeon in Egypt later on. After many years, they fell into his hands because they came from the land of Israel to receive food because they were in severe drought and they did not recognize him. He was the king, the second in command in Egypt, but he did not took revenge on them. He forgave them. He did something that he had to teach them a little lesson, but he did not repay. He did not take revenge on them. So what this verse is teaching us is we are really, our teacher, Kabbalah teacher, used to say that we are the last ones to benefit when we hold on to something like negative from the past. We're the last ones to benefit from that. So holding on resentment and anger, if we have something right now that we may still hold towards something from the past, this also can be a blockage from us receiving sustenance because it lowers our frequency, plain and simple. So it's also a good opportunity to see if there's something from our past we might still have resentment, and let go of that. Forgive. It might be difficult, but we can try. Give it at least a try. No. And the last verse for today is 198. תחזי יצר טוב באי חדווה דאורייתא ויצר רע חדווה דחמרה וניופין וגסותה דרוחה ובגין כך באי ברנש לארגזה תדיר מההוא יומה רבה יומה דדינה יומה דחושבנה דלת לי לברנש להגנה עלי אלא עובדוי דחשרן דאיהו אבד בהי עלמה בגין דייגנו עלי בהי שעתה. Translation. Come and behold, the good inclination requires the joy of the Torah. In the evil inclination, the joy of wine, fornication, and pride. Therefore, a man should always, a woman or a man should always vex it by mention of that great day, the day of judgment, the day of reckoning. For there is nothing that protects a human being at that time except the good deeds that he or she performs in the world. So what we learn here is that it's much easier to go down than to go up, first of all. Because going down, we can do one thing, like whatever we build, and we can do one act and we can destroy everything. It's very easy to destroy. That's why in a Kabbalistic wedding and Jewish wedding, they take a glass and they wrap it and then they break it. Why? To remind that how easy it is to break, but to put the pieces back together, it's very hard. It's very hard. That's why they break the glass in the wedding, to remind the couple to hold on what they create, that vessel that is called the marriage. But
Humpty Dumpty.
Huh?
Humpty
Humpty
Dumpty.
Dumpty. What is this verse is about is really teaching us about how we create a shield of spiritual protection. And really what we learn is that the shield is that we spoke about earlier in charity is the good deeds. The good deeds that we're all creating in this life are the protecting shield from the laws of cause and effect. That's what really can help us. So we don't have to do good deeds, but also maintain our constant growth in this wisdom, because the wisdom is the engine, or the sort of the fuel that fuels our action, what we do. And we want to really use this every opportunity that is given to us by universe or by source to give us the opportunity to add up to our spiritual bank account of good deeds. This is really what we want to see, the opportunities. Doesn't mean we just become doormat. Just whatever comes to us, we say yes to everything. But we recognize the opportunities for growth. That's what it's about. So I think the time is up. It's 10.
Yeah, we have like 2-3 minutes, but
So,
it's up to you.
yeah.
But I also wanted to the reminder is for us about giving, right? It's receiving and giving.
Yes.
But for me, the reminder is to remember that we are creators. We are created by the image of God, and if the source and light is only giving, we're actually practicing to be God by this giving and receiving, because the real giving is that nobody really promise you that you're going to receive something from that giving, from that sharing. Like, because usually our mind, the physical mind says, okay, I'm going to give because it's also share. No, I'm going to share because it's also receiving. What about somebody's coming and telling you, you're going to receive nothing from this giving? Nothing, you just give. That's real light. So being like light. So for me, it's more practicing being light.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we're not here the point that we learn in the Zohar, it's not that we learn to be God. We are created in the image of God, which means, I'll give you an example. If you take a drop of water, okay, and you take billions of drops of water, the billions of drops of water that you add together, they're not going to act the same way. They don't have the same properties of a single drop of water. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
A drop of water have certain properties. When you add billions of drops of water, they have completely different properties. So we're learning to understand our uniqueness, but in relation to the whole. Because we know in Kabbalah, 1 + 1 equals what?
1.
Exactly.
How
1
does-
+ 1 + 1 + 1 equals 1. Billions, it equals 1. So we're not here to become God. We are here to become united with the one. That's what it's about.
So how do all the other drops of water different from the one drop of water? Water is water.
Well, if you look,
They're not different.
well, yes and no. If you look at the studies of Imoto, for example, he looks at drops of water. They all have different shapes, but it's still water. It just have different shapes. It's only a
So it's
physical shape.
manipulated.
It's just physical shape. But not even snowflakes. They're all not the same. They're all different. But when they add it together, it's a completely force. So our point is to understand our uniqueness, but in relation to the whole. It's not about, oh, I'm special and I'm above. I'm the God and you're my servants. It's not about that.
No.
Because
of course not.
those characters in the drama already been to this planet many times, and they all got the same lessons all over and over. Those who declare themselves deities and rulers of this planet, etc., etc. They all ended up the same way. So it's not about we're not about discouraging us to take charge, to be leaders, to do great things. But always remember, it's always relation to the individual, to the relation to the whole. And there's one more thing I wanted to add about Pharaoh's dream. It's a very important lesson. Pharaoh was a very, very, very negative person. Like if people talk about Trump, how he's like bad leader, Trump is an innocent lamb compared to Pharaoh. Like really innocent. Like you guys have no idea. The Zohar talking about the things they used to do in the ancient world. You can't even compare. He's a very innocent person. So let's put things in perspective. So the second thing is by talking about Pharaoh's dream and the fact that Joseph had to talk about and decipher the dream, we're getting a big lesson here. The lesson here, we can learn something of wisdom from each and every person, even from Trump, because I wanted to use that in a contemporary context. There is something for us to learn from Trump, even have dreams or not dreams. It's a teaching for us. Doesn't mean that everything that a negative person, whether it's him or anybody else, are doing. But there's a lesson for us to embrace. And the other lesson is no matter who's in charge in the political system, Joseph is the reminder you can be the second in command and you can be actually the ruler. Do you understand? So it doesn't matter who's sitting on the top chair, calling himself the president of the United States or Russia or whatever. There can be somebody behind them who's actually taking charge. It can be an Israelite in each and every place on this planet. This is really the reminder for us. Because Joseph was the one in command in Egypt. So this is a reminder for all of us. Doesn't matter who's in charge in this country or in any country on the planet. If you're an Israelite, you have a job to do.
Well, that's why they're going to D.C. They're opening Kabbalah Center in D.C. close to the White House.
Awesome. We'd love to see a Kabbalist inside the White
Going
House.
closer and closer.
That would be wonderful. So it's not excuse whatever leader is sitting in this country or in any other country on the planet. We need to cultivate the Israelites because these are the ones who we're going to pull in the strings, okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah. Miracles
Thank
and
you.
wonders to
Chag
everybody.
Sameach.
Shalom. Chag Sameach.
Shalom.